It's Thomas Pringle and Joan Collins, who I understand is sharing 20 minutes. Is that agreed? There, Thomas Pringle.
Thank you, Cahill. Minister, this bill obviously deals with the universal service obligation and the need for Post to have a price increase in the cost of postage to try and shore up their financial position in the current climate. And has been outlined as we have the cheapest postal prices in the EU, and so the increase will only just bring it probably into line with EU standards. But I think the crisis in Post is a crisis of the creation of from the EU as well, and Post has been outlined by people here. The Post Office network and also in Post itself has a social responsibility and plays an important role in terms of this important social role in terms of everyday life as well across the country. And the problem is that none of the EU regulations or none of the regulations that Post is working under actually recognises that, other than the universal service obligation. And that's the crux of the problem within Post. And that we face. And until we as a people and as a government come to the point of view that Post has a social role and we step up to that social responsibility, we'll always be in crisis within Post, and it will be a constant just diminishing returns all the time, until it comes to the point probably where we'll throw our hands up at it, or the government will throw their hands up and say, well, so we can do no more, and Post ceases to exist. And that will be a disaster for the 10,000 people that are working dependent on Post. It'll be a disaster for the many hundreds and thousands of millions of people across the country who depend on the postal service for delivery of their post, but also for indeed social contact and for the fact of having people come and delivering post to them in the house, in their houses. And Post has faced this difficulty through, we have the banks and the large utility companies pushing their customers and people to move on to e-billing and e-statements, which has taken that delivery of that service away from Post and providing for, I suppose, a free, cheap service to the bank and to the utility company and delivering those bills. And it has been outlined here earlier that the price increase might actually speed up that process as well of not encouraging other people who use the Post at the moment to try and push harder to get people moved over to e-billing and e-statements and e-communications rather than continuing to use the postal network as they have been doing in the past. And the one thing I'd be wary of as well in relation to this price increase is that it might actually have the unintended or undesired effect, or maybe it's a desired effect, of actually enticing private operators into the postal service as well, into providing a postal service in the bigger population areas and that too. I'm reminded of the fact that I think it was in 2002 we had the cheapest electricity in the European Union here, and we had ESB, a semi-state company, providing electricity at a very cheap cost to the consumers across the country, and also making a profit while they were doing it. But when the EU decided that the electricity market had to be deregulated and liberalised and opened up to competition, what did we discover here was that electricity was actually too cheap to have any competition, because the price wasn't going to entice any private operators into the market. So the energy regulator started on a programme of forcing the ESB to up its prices over a number of years to actually entice private operators and other operators into the electricity market. And would be wary and afraid of the fact that maybe a price increase for Post here would have the same effect of actually allowing private operators, making it more attractive for them to actually go in and carve off some of that business for themselves, because and then deciding whether to enter into and compete with Post, they'll be looking at what Post is charging and seeing can they come in at a lower price, which the Comreg will facilitate them in. So I think that could be an outcome of this price increase that could have a detrimental effect on Post as well. Minister, in your statement there earlier on, you said that 1% reduction in the mail volumes costs Post €4 million a year, and that's probably true. But I would take issue with your statement then that you say 1% increase in pay costs Post €4.5 million a year, because any pay deal that has been worked out with, and the recent pay deal that has been worked out with Post staff, has actually been on cost neutral basis on the staff given, actually in terms of giving up their entitlements to sick pay and stuff like that, to actually offset the cost for the company. So I don't know really, is it the 1% 1% increase in wages actually does have the same knock-on cost and effect on Post. I think in the wider postal services, I mean, I spoke earlier about Post and the social role that they play, and that's not been recognised. And we're a year on now since the care report was published, but yet we see very little or practically no implementation of the recommendations within the care report, which actually would go to help in making Post a sustainable company right across the country, and also help in maintain and keep those rural post offices opening. But now we hear that the care report and the recommendations of the care report are going to become part of the strategic review that's taking place of the business within Post. So now we'll have to wait for that before we see any implementation, and then if that's included in the strategic review, then we'll have to see the rollout of that. So that's a further delay. So I mean, what we've been seeing here and what we're seeing constantly is ongoing delay, and actually dealing with the issues. The care report could have been implemented through last year, and we could start to be seeing the effects of the rollout of that at this stage. That could be helping to boost Post and make the network more sustainable, and also assist the company in keeping its sustainability going as well. But we've lost that now with the delay, and then the strategic review is going to give further delay. And we are going to constantly be in a situation, a spiral. It's like nearly like a death spiral for Post at the minute, where the pressure is going to be to increase prices to fund them in the future. That increase in prices is going to reduce revenue. We're not getting no delivery on the actual recommendations that could help sustain the network and help sustain the company, and it's going to come to a point where the whole thing could collapse, come down like a house of cards. And I think that's wrong. I think we should be taken as a nation a decision to recognise the social responsibility and the social role that Post plays, and we should be ensuring that the price of stamps can be kept as low as feasible to ensure that people can have a service that they can continue to afford to use, and the people who actually use that service aren't subsidising the banks and the utilities who are moving away from that service and paying additional cost through that. And I think the company is in serious problems, and we need to take a grip of it. We need to accept the government's role and the people's role, and then ensuring that this service stays open, because the service is worth more than just the price of a stamp and the increase in stamps. Thanks.